Consumer duty is a prime example of how data strategy is increasingly at the heart of why, what, and how the firm operates, not just a core input for risk pricing. Decision makers in all functions, and especially at board, need more and better than the current set of metrics and measurement tools. These are the future metrics, and in 6 10-minute episodes, Insurance Data Lab brings you diverse, bite-sized views from experts inside and outside insurance and financial services. I'm Shan Millie, and I work at the intersection of data-enabled value generation, leadership, and trust. And these 3 competencies are business critical for growth in today's market. And I think consumer duty is the sternest test to date for the firm to work out, do you have what it takes or don't you? IDL in 10 Future Metrics aims to help you to take stock and to take action. This episode, I'm talking to James Daley, who's the MD of Fairer Finance, A Ratings. I say A, actually, I think you're the ratings and consultancy firm specialising in consumer duty. Hi, James.
Hello.
So, James, let's kick off. I know that you feel very strongly that there are real problems with the current set of metrics and data that should be giving the firm an accurate measure of what their customers and consumers actually think about them. Can you just unpack that a little bit for us, please?
Yeah, so obviously, the headline from Consumer Duty is that you have to prove that you are delivering good outcomes, and there's a whole bunch of complexity in doing that, but getting the views of the customers themselves is clearly going to be a key part of it. But the problem with a lot of polling out there today is that it's done in certain ways that don't always deliver outcomes that you can rely on or results that you can rely on. So a lot of firms poll their customers by sending out an email to the entire database and say, we really want to hear from you. We want to know if you're happy. And then what you tend to get is the very angry people and a few of the very happy people. And that's obviously useful feedback for the firm, but it doesn't necessarily give you that clear picture about how all of your customers are feeling. There are obviously metrics like Trustpilot, but again, they tend to work in a way where customers are asked how they're feeling at moments where they know they're going to be able to interact with the customer. So maybe just after they bought the product. And so at that moment, everybody's normally delighted because they've just literally paid their money over. And so, you see those firms that engage with Trustpilot getting very high scores on Trustpilot, but it's quite hard, again, to make comparisons and to take the full reassurance that, just because you've got 4.5 on Trustpilot, that means you're delivering good customer outcomes. We do customer polling. We do a poll to 10,000 people every 6 months, and we do it through a panel. And the advantage of doing it that way is that you are hitting customers at different stages of their life cycle with the company, and that they've got no axe to grind, or that they may be happy, they may be sad, or they may just be neutral. And you're much more likely to get those kind of answers across the spectrum when you say, well, how do you feel about your provider here? So we do think that kind of polling can provide more valid readings as to how customers are perceiving you. But even then, you've got to be careful, because customers can be blissfully ignorant. They may have bought your insurance product and not realize that it doesn't actually do what they need it to do. And in many cases, people buy these insurance products and then discover a few months later, when they come to make a claim, that actually it didn't do what they wanted it to do. Or perhaps they never discover that. They just walk out the other end and feel like that was a fantastic product, without realizing that if they'd ever needed it, it wouldn't have been there for them. So companies are going to have to get smarter at finding ways to really drive to the answer here. We're seeing quite a lot of firms who are just looking for a box tick solution, something that goes, we've done enough. Look, is that okay, FCA? But actually, I don't think that is going to hold muster. You need to really try and get to an answer which you think, yes, this is the truth here. This is the proof that our customers really are getting good outcomes from us.
Yeah. So you've said, in search of that more accurate, granular picture, representative picture, that kind of approach to polling that's more of a kind of life cycle type dipping in and out, really testing, is one way to get to that accurate picture. Are there any other ways, James, that you can think of, or that you want someone else to invent, that would enable the firm to get a clearer, better and more compelling picture for them and the FCA?
I mean, I think if you're a bigger firm, it's worth investing in voice of the customer programs and things where you have a panel of customers who you can engage with on a regular basis. Because, if you've got hundreds of thousands of customers, then it's possible to build a panel of several thousand who you can go to on a regular basis. And that's going to give you a much more even read about how your customers are feeling than if you just send out a mass email to all of them and see who responds to it, because response rates are typically very low. Obviously, if you're a smaller firm, that's obviously impossible to do. And it is tricky there. I mean, focus groups can work. The important thing is to poll real customers or get real customers engaged. One of the things we're seeing with Consumer Duty is, especially in the realm of having to test whether or not customers understand your communications, is firms getting focus groups of random members of the public together and going, right, here's a bunch of our letters. Do you understand what we're trying to tell you? I think that's very dangerous, because if you try and get somebody who isn't even one of your customers to simulate their understanding of a particular letter which they haven't received, you're going to get some odd results and perhaps lull yourself into a false sense of security. And the same goes with focus groups, where you're asking people about how happy they are. It's a very artificial environment, but you can learn things. You just have to be very careful what you draw from them.
So I guess what people are looking for, going back to the data strategy, governance and applications obviously in the firm, is I guess people really are yearning for lots and lots of data that's nicely presented in a uniform pattern that they can import into their various dashboards and so forth, right, James? And I guess listening to you, I'm getting the very, very, very strong feeling that that's just not necessarily going to work at all when it comes to customer understanding, customer trust, customer perceptions of fair value, for example.
Yeah, it's very difficult with customer understanding. We've had firms come to us and say, we want you to test our communications and put them in front of a polling panel and say, do you understand this? And like I say, I think those situations are so artificial. And we know from our own experience of having run these kind of studies before that, you get people misrepresenting how much they understand stuff because they don't want to appear stupid. So, it's sort of human nature to go, oh yeah, I totally understand that. And even if you're asking them comprehension questions, and they get the right answer, you have to think this is a completely artificial environment where you put them something in front of them and then ask them whether they understand it, and so then of course they've read it. But in reality, you're dealing with a world where people are getting communications in the mail, by email, text messages. They're reading some of them, they're not reading others. It's a complicated pattern, and so you have to think very carefully about how you're going to prove your point there. And I don't think there are easy answers to that, unfortunately.
No.
There are things you can do, but that's why I think actually data in terms of positive outcomes is much more important. So actually, let's say you can't really prove that your customers understand the letter that's put in front of them. That's less important if you can prove that they're all doing the thing they need to do that delivers the good outcome. So, let's say it's renewal time in insurance. Well, what do you need them to do? They need to have checked that their details are up to date, check the cover still meets their needs, check that they're happy with the price. Well, if you can see that actually when you send those letters out, people are logging into the portal, they're opening the statement of information and reviewing all of their details, and they're clicking renew, then actually hopefully you're able to say, well, we know that they did actually check the information, we know they're happy with the price, and we're going to have to sort of hope, having given them all the information we gave them on the screen, that they've got the right cover for them.
Super.
And that's about as far as you can go.
Thank you so much, James. That was really informative. And so back over to Dan, the co-founder of Insurance Data Lab. Dan, any reflections on I'm sure you will have some reflections on what you've just heard from James.
Yeah, I think one of the most interesting points that James raises is right at the end there on renewal. In terms of whether an insurer can prove that at renewal customers actually are doing what they need to do to understand what's happening at that point and checking the details and making sure that the policy meets their needs still and reviewing the price. Because even as somebody that knows a bit about insurance, when it comes to renewal, normally I get an email from an insurer saying your policy is auto renewing. This is the price. I look at the price, compare it to last year, think, yeah, that seems fair, and don't take any action whatsoever. So, and I suspect that's what many customers are doing. So, I imagine that's going to be pretty hard for insurers to prove that customers are properly interacting and engaging at that point with the policy and are sure that the policy is still meeting their needs.
Yes, well, thank you very much. So, James, if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Well, fairefinance.com, there's contact details there, various email addresses and phone numbers and all the rest of it. So yeah, do get in touch.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for listening in. See you the next time.